Yo, everybody come get your bounce on, get your bounce on, get your bounce on.
Some distractions, but hey, I'm glad
Don't be cute with it, you gotta get, come on.
you can join tonight. I'm hoping more people will join, but quickly before I bring in the doctor, I'm just going to get started, and as usual, I would kind of share my thoughts, today. One scripture that I wanted to bring to us today is Romans 8:39, and that scripture says, "No power in sky above and in the earth." That's the New Living Translation. It says, "No power in the sky above and in the earth below. Indeed, nothing in all creation will ever be able to separate us from the love of God that is revealed in Christ Jesus our Lord." And for me, again, in my meditation time, I just thinking deeply about, that really nothing can separate me from the love of God. And that's reassuring. It's just a comforting place and comforting thing to know, So I just want to admonish us, trust God and trust his process. Honestly, his glory will be revealed no matter what it is that you are or is happening to you at this time. Just trust God, trust his process. I borrowed from a friend's encouragement today. Somebody sent something earlier on this afternoon, that encouraged me, and he says that it is not the water surrounding the ship that sinks the ship, it's actually the water that gets into the ship that sinks it. So I'll implore us, guard your heart, body and mind. Don't allow negative stuff weigh you down. It doesn't matter what the chaos or the noise around you is. Honestly, keep your mind and head above all of those negativity, if there is any around you, or just get away from it, And if you feel your mind with the right thing, honestly, most of the battle is already won. Keep your inside, or void of what can potentially poison your spirit. Honestly, it's important to focus on what's happening inside us, despite whatever it is that's happening around us, because invariably what is happening inside us determines the course of our lives and eventually what happens around us, because as a man thinks in his heart, so is he. So we speak from the place of abundance, either positively or negatively. So I said all of that to say this, that fill your inside, your mind and your heart with the word of God. Meditate on the word of God. Think deeply about God's word. As you read the word of God, think deeply on those things. And it has a way of transforming us from the inside out. Hebrew 4:12 says that the word of God is alive and powerful. It is sharper than the sharpest two-edged sword, cutting between soul and spirit, between joint and marrow. He exposes our innermost thoughts and desires. Think about the word of God and let it cook, let it simmer, and let it transform you inside out. It's something I'm trying to do as well. So together, let's do this. That's what can make the difference, even as we journey. Good evening, everyone who has joined. Thank you for bearing with me. I'm just going to try and bring the doctor in, and today we're talking about role of food in hormone balancing for uterine fibroids. Thank you, everyone who's joined. Grateful to have you here. I'm going to bring the doctor in. Sorry, Dr. Kenne, I'm just trying to find you. Can you request to join again, please, Dr. Kenne? I hope everyone's doing well and hope we've had a good day. There we go. We're in conversation with Dr. Kenne. A few of us who, if you've been here before, you will have met Dr. Kenne. She has been. Hi.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm doing well. Let me adjust this.
Lovely to have you here. I was just saying we're having you, and if anyone who's joined us previously will know that we've had you before. And today, we're talking about the role of food in balancing hormones, especially when you're living with uterine fibroids. Dr. Kene is a functional medicine practitioner and a nutritionist. And today we're going to be demystifying, if you like, some of those things around fibroids. You know, we're going to be learning about food that can trigger fibroid growth, you know, understanding treatment available, the dietary supplement that supports shrinking fibroid. So, Dr. Kene, please introduce yourself. And then, so the order is, once you've introduced yourself, tell us, we get started, really tell us a bit of information, education around hormone, just relating it to fibroids and how food comes into play. And then once you finish that, I'll then kind of go through some of the questions that we have, and that way just the conversation can progress, if that's okay.
Oops.
And I know
Sounds
that
good.
you like to mute both ways when we're having conversations, so got you. And we're gonna go. So first and foremost, please introduce yourself. Good evening, everyone. If it's your first time here, where this is Fibro Support Network, where it's a community that provides conversation and discussion and a bit of hand-holding, peer-to-peer support, nurturing and encouraging women to speak up, you know, around feminine health issues. So today our conversation is around the role of food in hormonal balancing, especially if you're living with uterine fibroids. So carried away, Dr. Kene, introduce yourself and let's get this started.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Tony. I really appreciate being here. Thank you for inviting me again. This is one of my favorite topics. I love to talk about nutrition. I love to talk about the therapeutic impact of what we eat. We do something every day. We eat every day. So we have to choose to eat what sustains life, what promotes life, right? And what also would help with just an overall positive well-being. So my background is in all things health. So I've been practicing as a pharmacist for almost 20 years now. I am a functional medicine practitioner. So what that is I aim at tackling the root cause of problems and try to find the best recommendation to help resolve that problem. I'm also a nutritionist. I've had extensive training in dietetics and also in food science. I actually am published in food science and nutrition. I did my master degree in that. But I just love to help and support people with nutritional interventions for common problems. Now, why I am somewhat passionate about fibroids is because I had a personal experience with that. So it's different when you're trying to offer help and support to others, and when you yourself have a unique diagnosis that requires you to implement what you've been offering other people. So I found myself in that position many years ago, and I was able to leverage nutrition and lifestyle changes to heal myself. And I was able to conceive afterwards. So this is something that I do, and I'm very, very grateful to have worked with so many women and have helped them heal, shrink fibroids naturally without myomectomy, without any procedures, and just have them lead lives, go through periods without issues with pain, without issues with anemia. You know, it's crazy what women go through and they don't talk about. So I really admire and appreciate Mrs. Taiwo for your platform, what you're doing to support women. So to get started, I'm just going to mute and see if Tony has anything to say, because we have to mute back and forth before I continue.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you so much. Thank you for coming again, you know, Dr. Kene. And I'm grateful, you know, every time that you come and pour into us and give of your knowledge and your skills, and, you know, something that, and I guess that's why we can be passionate about it, because it's something that we have actually lived. It's not theoretical. It's not something we've read, to be able to help women. You know, today, something happened that took me to that place again. I was supporting someone who's really in a bad place with a fibroid, and everything that I went through came back, and I knew I had to do something, and all of the getting the help and all of that. And so that's a drive for us, because we've actually been through the situation, and we are passionate about helping resolve the issue, this kind of issues for women who are going through this. And so today, and you know, I've read that we are what we eat, and as much as it's a journey, even for me, honestly, but being intentional, being knowing that, look, I have to have a better outcome. My life must be different, you know, because sometimes, like with the lady today, there's no good quality of life, especially if you are bleeding nonstop, if you're just anemic, you're unwell, you know, your mental health is even not in the right place, because you can't even go out. You don't want to go out. You don't want to socialize, you know, so those kind of things. So finding the food, if food is a major thing in balancing our hormones. So trying to do this right is something that I really implore, and I say to every woman, honestly, go that down road before you start to explore surgeries and whatnot. Yeah, so.
Absolutely, I totally agree with you. For me, surgery was not an option. I chose not to do it, and it's what I try to tell women is you need to understand what fibroids are before you choose any treatment method, right? You have to understand fibroids are tumors, but they're not cancerous. They are not cancerous. The organ of choice for fibroids is the womb, is the uterus. So the question is, what caused these fibroids to start? Why are they growing? What is fueling the fibroids, right? And why is it that women of African descent tend to have the most aggressive form of fibroids? In fact, in the Western world, unfortunately, when you have fibroids and you go to your OBGYN, majority of women of African descent are given the option of hysterectomy. It's like myomectomy is just bypassed, and it's just like, you know what, let's just take the womb out, you know, because it's just mind-blowing the kind of fibroids women of African descent have. So why is this occurring? So the truth is, fibroids are fed by things that we can introduce, and we unconsciously introduce on a daily basis. It goes into decades, and before you know it, your womb is just covered up with fibroids. Now, one of the things you need to know about the features of fibroids is it is hormone dependent, okay? And the two hormones that are have a unique marriage when it comes to fibroids is estrogen and progesterone. Estrogen is what makes women feel like women, right? It gives us our boobs, our hips, our thighs, you know. It does that, right? And then progesterone is like the baby promoting hormone. It's like promotes gestation. So the second half of your cycle is when you have more levels of progesterone. It prepares the lining of the womb so you can have a fertilized egg. So these these hormones are very important, right, for our reproductive health, but they have to always be in a state of balance. The problem occurs when they're not in a state of balance. Now, when you have dominant levels of estrogen, you are likely to have fibroids, endometriosis, adenomyosis, and even ovarian cysts. If you have poorly regulated progesterone, you can have fibroids. So we need to find out, okay, how can we modulate these hormones? And the next thing is, what kind of foods are we eating? What kind of foods are we eating that's causing these hormones to be off? So I can tell you this now.
Before you go on, Dr. Kenneth, I just wanted to jump in around what you mentioned before you jump into the food and the groups of food, you know, that can help with fibroid. You mentioned something around hysterectomy, women being offered a hysterectomy, you know, jumping from, oh, you've got fibroids, and then being offered a hysterectomy. And to be honest, I've had conversation with a few girlfriends, and, you know, and some people actually thought Well, I would say thought, well, I was thinking that hysterectomy was the easy way out. But honestly, it's not even an easy way out. Trust me, coming from someone who's living with it, because it induces other kind of things that you're not even ready for, you know? So because one, if you're going from one extreme, thinking, okay, oh, I don't like all of this, feeling unwell, anemic, being anemic, and you know, not having a good lifestyle, and then you want to go to the other extreme and say, okay, let's just have the uterus gone and I can have some peace and quiet. But that's not the case. I am finding out that honestly, it is not the case. There are other sets of troubles that comes with doing that. You know, I just wanted to highlight that before we're considering myomectomy, hysterectomy, make sure that we're exploring the right option. And food, I am big on using this food thing as healing for fibroid, because you can share with us some of the testimonial you have from the various groups that you're working with. Thank you. Carry on.
Thank you for sharing that. I really appreciate you sharing that. It's, you know, extremes, you have to be very careful about extremes, right? My dear friend Omoni Oboli, you may know her, the Nollywood actress. Her mom died after she did a hysterectomy because of fibroids, and this is a lady that was post-menopausal. She was 50-something years old. So she was kind of her physicians convinced her that may be a better option because she was done having kids. You know, she's in her 50s. Why deal with fibroids? You don't plan to have any kids anymore. Obviously, you're not going to be having any kids, so just take it out. She followed your advice, took it out, took out her womb, and shortly after, she just suffered one complication to another, and she passed away. You know, so we have to be very careful about extremes. Just do your own research, and you have to understand, as a woman of African descent, you are bound to have the most aggressive form of fibroids just because of what we are prone to having, and I'm going to get into that right now. So fibroids have some unique features, and one of the unique feature is it is high in protein fibers, very tough protein fibers. These are called collagen. Black women tend to have higher amounts of this protein. And what does this protein do? What does this collagen do? It gives the fibroids a unique structure. It strengthens, stiffens, and hardens, firms the fibroids. That's why some ladies, when they lay down, they're like, oh my gosh, I feel it. It feels like a rock. Why does it feel like a rock? Why does it feel so tough and firm? Because you have a lot of collagen in it. It's part of what we call the extracellular matrix. It's what keeps the fibroid nice and firm, you know, and strong and tough, right? So we tend to have a lot of that. However, there are some foods you can eat that begins to start breaking that collagen. We call that anti-fibrotic foods. So when they say fibroids are fibrotic, it means they are high in collagen. They are high in those protein fibers. Now, there are powerful foods like green tea. That's a beverage. Berries, talking about strawberries, blueberries, raspberries, blackberries. These berries are anti-fibrotic. They actually start to break down those tough protein fibers, and when those tough protein fibers begin to degrade, the fibroids become weaker, and begin to shrink in volume and in size, right? Another unique feature of fibroids is that they're inflammatory. So they are boosted by inflammatory foods and inflammatory lifestyles. So I can tell you what inflammatory foods are like. I bet you've seen them. You may have eaten them at some point in time. White rice. Who knows white flour? You know white flour. Have you eaten cake? Have you eaten white bread? Have you had donuts? Have you had pizza? You have eaten something that has promoted the growth of the fibroids, because those are pro-inflammatory foods. They cause what we call inflammatory markers to begin to release into your body, into your system, that feeds the growth of the fibroids. And as they feed the growth of the fibroids, they strengthen that matrix we talked about, that extracellular matrix. It strengthens it, gives it more power. The fibers become stronger, firmer, and stubborn. Another thing that these pro-inflammatory foods do is they help to form the blood supply for the fibroids. Yes, I tell folks fibroids are like vampires. They are like vampires. They actually create their own channel of blood supply so that they grow. They want to grow. They want to thrive. Yes, they are not cancerous, but they want to grow in that location they've chosen, which is the womb. They are considered benign tumors because they are localized. So they have to find a way to grow in this localized position. And the localized position is this womb. So they found they have this blood supply, these tubes that are created. It's called angiogenesis, as a result of the pro-inflammatory foods that the host, the woman, is eating. So let's talk about other pro-inflammatory foods. Fried foods. We're talking about deep fried foods, fruits inundated in oil, fried chicken, puff puff, donuts, akara, fried foods. That does not help. It promotes angiogenesis. You're helping to feed the growth of fibroids. Another pro-inflammatory food or beverage you should know about is sugar-rich drinks or high fructose containing drinks. Sadly, most of these commercial drinks we see sold and we maybe even offer our guests are high in high fructose corn syrup. So I try to tell everyone I talk to, please look at your nutrition labels. Don't buy anything blindly. Don't go to the store and you see the packaging of organic this, you just go pick it up blindly. No. Turn that carton, turn that package around, look at the nutrition facts. Does it have added sugar? Now, when you look under added sugar, it should say 0. That is what you want to look for, 0 grams. The last thing you want is to consume added sugar in the foods that you eat. And then look at the list of ingredients. Now, if sugar is mentioned as one of the first 3 or the first 5 in the ingredient list, just put it down. That thing is high in sugar and will promote the growth of fibroids because it not only causes that inflammation we talked about, but it boosts levels of what we call insulin-like growth factor. This is one of the growth factors that are released from eating pro-inflammatory foods that cause the fibroids to grow fast, very fast. That's what we call proliferation. Fibroids are proliferative in nature. They grow fast. They grow very quickly. That's why some folks, they're like, I did my ultrasound last year. I had 2 fibroids and I did it 6 months after. Oh my gosh, it looks like I have 4 now.
I can testify to that. I can testify to that honestly, Dr. Kene, because I lived with that because of lack of knowledge. You know what you said about picking the carton, turning and seeing the list of ingredients. I was just not aware of any of those things. I was trying to have a healthy lifestyle. So I started, because I wasn't informed or educated properly, I started drinking soy milk. And I experienced firsthand aggressive growth of fibroid. And, it just went off the roof and I started bleeding nonstop. I didn't understand what it was, why I was bleeding, and thank you for bringing all of that up. And also, I was laughing when you were talking about when you're listening to food, I was talking about puff puff, and a friend of mine earlier today had messaged me and said, "Oh, why are you talking about this now? That means no more puff puff for me." I'm like, yeah, no more puff puff for you, and it's interesting the things that we don't know. And before you carry on too quickly, before I forget, I wanted to ask you about collagen that you were talking about, because I remember also at one point my hair was breaking out, and I had this conversation with another friend, and I think we actually went away and we met someone who said, oh, she's on collagen supplement, so I came back home and I went and bought collagen supplement. I wonder, is that a no-no for someone with fibro? Because I wanted to grow my hair, so I thought, you know what, I'll start using collagen. So I'd like to know your take on that, please.
That's a very good question, and I can give you an answer right now. Thankfully, no, it doesn't. It doesn't support or it doesn't feed the fibroid growth. Thankfully, it doesn't. Now, what would feed the collagen that supports the fibroid is pro-inflammatory foods. So these pro-inflammatory foods that I mentioned, the fried foods, the bleached, refined flour, and then saturated fat. Now, the collagen that you want to use, you want to make sure, you want to know where it's coming from. If it's coming from the collagen of, say, cow or chicken, how much fat is in there, what kind of fat is in there. You want to be careful about saturated fat, right? Saturated fat are the fats that stay solid. They tend to be solid at room temperature, and the worst kind of fat you want to ingest is trans fat. So saturated fat and trans fat are no. They are a big no when it comes to fibroid shrinkage because they promote fibroid growth. So saturated fat, you can get that from red meat. When you ingest red meat, unfortunately, you are increasing your levels of saturated fat, which promotes the collagen formation in the fibroids, make it bigger, firmer, stronger, harder, and make new ones grow. Okay, and it also supports the blood supply, formation of the blood supply to the fibroids to make them bigger. So you want to avoid saturated fat. Where can you get saturated fat from apart from red meat? You can also get that from the yolk of eggs. When you eat the yolk of eggs, you are ingesting saturated fat. The yolk of eggs are very rich. I'm telling you, super rich, even in vitamin D. But the problem is the saturation of the fat. We really want to be careful about what we're ingesting if we want to seriously shrink the fibroids naturally. If you want to bypass procedures, if you want to bypass myomectomy, bypass hysterectomy, you need to be serious about what you're eating because you can shrink your fibroids naturally. Sorry, not your fibroids. I don't like to claim ownership of fibroids. You can shrink the fibroids naturally, but you need to be ready for the change. You have to be mentally prepared. You can have tasty, healthy dishes daily that will promote the shrinkage. Okay, now trans fats, that is poison. Okay, now thank God that most health bodies in different countries are very much aware of that, and they put them in their health guidelines. No trans fats should be ingested because you can have higher risk of damages to your heart muscle and to your blood vessels. But food manufacturers have unique ways of adding them into their products because trans fats helps to give their food a longer shelf life. They are firmer at room temperature, so it helps to preserve the food. It serves as a kind of preservative, so to speak, right? So the food manufacturers want to make money off their food product, so they find ways to add trans fats to extend that shelf life, so they make profit on the food. So how can you identify trans fats? Look at your food ingredients. If you see the word hydrogenation, hydrogenated fats, hydrogenated oil, if it says fully hydrogenated or partially hydrogenated, just put that thing down and walk away. It is a trans fat. It contains a trans fat. It will feed the fibroids. It will make new ones grow. Okay? So that is what you should be looking for, because these guys are smart. You would not see trans fat on the ingredient list. No, you will not see trans fat. However, you will see hydrogenated. You will see hydrogenated palm oil or hydrogenated oils, or partially or fully. It will be mentioned there. And where do you find those things? You find them in margarines. You find them in pizzas, like frozen pizzas. You find them in shortening that is used for bacon. You also find trans fats in this just escaped me and it's so popular. When it comes to me, I'll tell you. When you fry with oil and you continue frying with that oil, there's something they used to do back home in Nigeria where they fry with oil, they save that oil, and they reuse it over and over and over again. That oil eventually turns into a trans fat. Okay, that will damage the blood vessels, damage the heart muscle. That would feed fibroid growth. Okay, So you want to be careful about trans fats. Avoid that. You see that in your ingredient list. Stay away from it. Yes, I just remembered biscuits. Most of these lovely biscuits, especially in the West, they have hydrogenated fats. A lot of these biscuits and cookies and commercially baked goods. Look at the ingredients. Don't buy them for your kids. Don't buy them for your guests. Avoid them. Okay? They feed fibroids. Now, we've talked about some of these pro fibroid foods, right? Now, what can we do to begin to heal our bodies? Because once you begin to introduce components that inhibit this fibrotic state of fibroids, this inflammatory state of fibroids, and this angiogenic state of fibroids, the fibroids will shrink. But you need to start doing those things. You need to start introducing those foods consistently. It may take 3 months, it may take 6 months, but it will shrink eventually. It will, so when you think about it, the lifestyle that you led prior to the manifestation of this fibroid was probably for 10, 12, 20 years. Now, some people think, oh man, when I start eating right and all that, will this shrink like in 2 months, in 3 months? I can't tell. It depends on the individual. Like in the cohorts I've worked with, some ladies have shrunken their fibroids within 3 months, some within 6 months, some 8 months. It depends on the individual. I don't live in your house. I can't monitor what you're putting in your mouth. I can't monitor whether or not you're actually implementing what I'm recommending. But for those who have followed through, they have shrunken their fibroids. We had a lady, I'll share this very quickly before I give it back to Tony. This lady that joined our group, her period was for 21 days. I almost passed out when she came to me. What I mean by period is she was bleeding, actively bleeding for 21 days. And I was like, Jesus Christ, this lady was always receiving blood transfusion, iron infusion. She was anemic. Oh, she was in a bad shape. In fact, I was a little bit scared when she came to me. I'm like, Lord God, can I help this lady? But she started working with me. The first thing I had her do was to stop all the birth controls she was taking. The last thing you want to be doing is taking birth controls if you want to shrink fibroids, because birth controls have the potent form of estrogen, the one we call estradiol E2. So she had to stop that. And then we started leveraging these food regimen. Within 1 month, within the 1 month, the pain went away. So she no longer had pain during her periods. By the second month, her period went down from 21 days of bleeding to 14 days of bleeding. I was like, wow. In my mind, I'm thinking that's still a lot, but she was so happy. She was like, oh my gosh, I'm only bleeding for 14 days. I'm like, but that's still a lot of days to bleed. It's still a lot. Let's continue working. So she stayed on it. By the third month, this lady was bleeding only 5 days. Now, the normal duration of bleeding should be between 5 to 7 days. I push for 3 days. I mean, I'm currently right now, I'm 44. I'll be 45 in a few months. And I bleed for 3 days. Second day was like, oh, that's when it's like, oh my gosh, okay, I really have a period. Third day is like, where is it? It's already gone. Fourth day is gone, finished. So I tell folks, the ladies that come to me in their 20s and 30s, I'm like, if someone that's almost 45 is going through has a 3-day period, you can achieve this. You can do this. So I encourage everyone, please, be ready to change your lifestyle. If you want to embark on the process of shrinking fibroids naturally, it is possible, it is doable. Let me let Tony speak.
Thank you so much, Dr. Kenna. It's interesting, some of the things that you've touched on. And before we get into, using food and the possible solutions and how we can use food, honestly, one thing that, the highlight for me from some of the things you've said is about read the labels. Always read the labels. It's about reading the labels for those food, and that's one about reusing oil. Honestly, I testify that my mom came and she was, why are you using this oil? Oh, don't waste it. And honestly, for me, that's new. I didn't even know that. Oh, overuse of that oil can make it turn into trans fat, and which is very, very, very dangerous. And then also the birth control bit of stuff. I know that even some gynecologists will give you birth coil to help kind of reduce the bleeding, you know. So now you're saying that even that can make the fibers grow bigger, you know. So I mean, those are some of the things I wanted to highlight from what you've mentioned, you know, while you were speaking. And talking about food, you know, you were sharing about someone in your cohort who was able to stop bleeding. I mean, I can tell you firsthand about excessive bleeding, because I was bleeding nonstop for 2 years and in and out of hospital, having blood transfusion and all of those shebang. And honestly, that was a difficult time in my life, and it will be for anyone. 21 days, 2 years, or whenever, non-stop. So that's why even today when I was speaking to the lady, you know, in the hub who was going through that, I knew how she felt because I was there once, honestly. And so that's why we must take all of these things, this information, this knowledge that we're getting, and do something with it. It's really important that we're able to turn it around if we really are looking for wellness, you know, and to live a good quality life, you know. So thank you, Dr. Kene. Please, let's start to talk about the possible solution. What food combination, what should women be looking at? What kind of herbs can help with shrinkages, you know? And what should women be eating?
Yes, thank you. Thank you for sharing that. So it's important to understand what causes it, and then what can begin to shrink it. Because the worst thing you can do is to be ingesting what is promoting the fibroids and also simultaneously be ingesting what should be shrinking the fibroids. It's not going to work, right? You know, one thing has to taper off, and the part that has to taper off is what you may be ingesting that is promoting the growth. Okay, so we went over some things, not an exhaustive list of some pro-inflammatory foods or some pro-fibrotic foods. Now you know that the fibroids are unique in the sense that it creates its own blood supply. It likes to grow fast. It likes pro-inflammatory foods. You now have to go into, okay, what is anti-inflammatory? What will cause the collagen to soften and degrade? One of the things that has been researched on, or one of the beverages that has been researched on that has shown to be anti-fibrotic is green tea. Green tea. Green tea contains a unique compound called epigallocatechin gallate. That is EGCG. This component has been shown to expedite the shrinkage of fibroids by releasing excess estrogen. Remember earlier we talked about some hormones that are primarily present when it comes to fibroid growth. We talked about estrogen, we talked about progesterone, and how these two hormones have a very unique marriage when it comes to fibroids. Now, the goal is we want to make sure that progesterone is modulated, is balanced, is regulated properly. I want to make sure we don't have excess estrogen. Now, estrogen, you have different types. You have E1, E2, E3. E2 is the most potent form of estrogen, and that's what's contained in most birth controls as ethinyl estradiol. You want to make sure you're not eating or introducing E2 in your body. You want to make sure you're expediting the metabolism or the elimination. So one of the fastest ways to eliminate E2 is having frequent bowel movements. So the foods that will promote bowel movements is fibrous foods, foods high in fiber. I can tell you this group of vegetables called cruciferous vegetables are powerful. They help to expedite the metabolism, the breakdown of excess estrogen, and the elimination in your poop, in your feces. So I tell ladies in my group, hey, we talk about poop very freely here because you need to get poisons out of your body. You cannot keep poisons sitting in your body. Your small intestine is 22 feet long. Your large intestine that contains the waste of your body is 5 feet long. After you've gone through metabolic processes, you release byproducts, you release waste. How do you think that waste gets out of you? It goes to your large intestine and it has to come out of your body in your feces. So if you're not pooping, guess what? You're having poisons in your system as well as excess estrogen in your system, because estrogen is primarily excreted in the poop. Sadly, most women with fibroids tend to be constipated. They are not having regular bowel movements. I tell folks, please aim at having 2 to 3 bowel movements a day. Women especially that are trying to shrink fibroids. So you want to go for cruciferous vegetables because they will help with bowel movements. We're talking about Brussels sprouts, broccoli, kale, cabbage, cauliflower, bok choy. Find ways to ingest this every day, every day. I don't always jump to supplements because I want everyone to master what they put in their mouth. Like I said earlier, there's something you do every day, you eat. Choose to eat what promotes life. Choose to eat what promotes healing. It's a choice. You don't want to wait to be in a situation that I was in, where I experienced a miscarriage. And this was like 8 years ago, 7, 8 years ago. You don't want to go through pain, horrific pain, before you start making lifestyle changes. When they tell you, after you've done an ultrasound or an MRI, you have fibroids, start making lifestyle changes right away, because we know the nature of fibroids. They like to grow fast, speedily, okay? So we need to make sure we're eating cruciferous vegetables. If you're living in an area where it's like, oh my goodness, I don't think I have cruciferous vegetables. Well, do you have leafy greens around you? Okay, because leafy greens also have antioxidants, anti-inflammatory components that will cause fibroids to begin to shrink. So if you're in West Africa, do you have access to water leaf? Do you have access to bitter leaf? Do you have access to moringa? What vegetables do you have access to? Eat those, begin to consume those daily. If you can have them in the raw form, even better. The only vegetable I tell folks you have to be very careful eating it in the raw form is spinach. Spinach is not a cruciferous vegetable, but it's great for you because it is high in what we call insoluble fiber. Insoluble fiber helps with bowel movements. And remember, bowel movements is important to get rid of excess estrogen. So if you have to eat spinach, make sure that it's subjected to some level of heat, either through steaming or lightly cooking, because spinach contains a compound called oxalate that can cause kidney stone formation. So I tell folks, if you don't have access to fresh spinach, you can get frozen chopped spinach, because most of the frozen vegetables we have in stores have been blanched. So they were immersed in hot water and then shocked with cold water before they were refrigerated or frozen, before they were frozen. So for spinach, it's better to go for frozen spinach. You can enjoy that in your smoothies. You can enjoy that steamed. Eat your vegetables. You need to have regular bowel movements to get rid of excess estrogen. And we mentioned earlier about green tea. Find ways to take green tea. If you have high blood pressure, you have a history of high blood pressure, go for decaffeinated green tea. You want to be taking that at least twice a day to really have the effect of that antioxidant, EGCG. So the progesterone piece of it. So we have to modulate progesterone. So what you can do to modulate progesterone is take vitamin D rich foods. So vitamin D rich foods would be something like salmon. Yes, you can have salmon. Have it in moderation though. Salmon is rich in vitamin D and also omega-3 fatty acids. Salmon, you have to ingest it like maybe once or twice a week. That's enough. You can go for 3 to 4 ounces at each meal, but be very careful about eating seafood every single day, because you just want to limit possible exposure to chemicals that may be in the flesh or in the fatty tissue of the fish. Okay, so you want to make sure you're ingesting vitamin D food sources, or you want to be exposing yourself to vitamin D from the sunlight. Okay, and the great thing about the green tea is not only does it expedite the breakdown of excess estrogen, it also helps to modulate progesterone. So green tea is excellent all around for the natural shrinkage of fibroids. Okay, so the next thing we want to do is we want to make sure that we're ingesting some unique fruits. So there are some unique fruits that you need to start eating on a regular basis when it comes to shrinkage of fibroids. So these are fruits that contain this compound we call ellagic acid. Ellagic acid is an antioxidant that also helps to block inflammation, that promotes fibroid growth. It blocks the formation of blood supply tubes, the tube formation to feed oxygen-rich blood to the fibroids. It blocks those things. So what are these fruits? I mentioned some earlier. If you caught it, blueberries, raspberries, blackberries, okay? And some nuts like walnuts, pecans. These are high in ellagic acid and they will support fibroid shrinkage. Now, when it comes to nuts, you want to be very careful because these contain components in them that are called anti-nutrients. So these actually try to block the digestion of the nuts. So when it comes to nuts, it's important that you lightly roast them or you soak them before you ingest them. Okay, so you can roast them lightly in your oven, right? It's better you get your own nuts raw and lightly roast them as opposed to going to a store and buying roasted nuts. Okay, because we don't know how long those nuts were sitting on the shelf. We don't know if the oils and the nuts have gotten rancid. So it's better you get the raw nuts yourself and you lightly roast them yourself. So you know some nuts now that you can eat to promote fibroid shrinkage. Pecans, walnuts are your friends. You can soak walnuts overnight and add them in your smoothies the next day. They are great for you. They're excellent for you. Now, another thing I will throw before I hand it back to Tony is be careful about the kinds of animal proteins that you choose to eat. I tell you, if you want to shrink fibroids, stay away from red meat. You can do wild caught salmon. Make sure it is wild. Avoid farmed. Avoid farmed salmon or farmed fish because you really cannot vouch for what the fish was fed in the farm. And sadly, most of the feed given to fish have been shown to have carcinogenic agents. That means foods that can promote cancer growth. So you want to be careful. So I would say stay away from farmed fish. If you must eat fish, go for wild caught salmon or wild caught cod, COD. That would be a nice option for you. These all have anti-inflammatory oils, so they are better for you, but don't take them every day. Don't eat fish every day. Like say 2 days a week is sufficient, okay? If you see yourself in a situation where it's like, I'm not eating, I don't think I can eat enough vegetables a day to really cause this fibroids to shrink. I don't think I can eat enough broccoli, enough kale, enough cabbage or cauliflower. You may want to consider some supplements to help you. My first choice is for you to make sure you're mastering your food before you go for supplements, okay? But you can do supplements along with your dietary intake. You want to look for DIM. So, I mean, we have access to kits that you could buy, fibroid kits that have these supplements that I use in my cohort. But you want to look for DIM, dienol methane, DIM. This is an extract from broccoli, from cruciferous vegetables that helps to break down estrogen and helps to cause it to be excreted in your poop, in your feces, right? So look for DIM. You're welcome to access our fibroid kit. We have DIM in there that we use. We've been very successful with the DIM we have. In fact, the DIM we have is in a capsule form. I literally open the capsule and I pour it into my smoothie and I mix it up and I drink it every day. It's great for you. It's just like eating food in a capsule. It's broccoli extract or cruciferous vegetables extract. So let me hand it to Tony.
Oh, wow. Oh, thank you so much, Dr. Kene. Thank you. You know, it's interesting. I like nuts a lot. I was going to ask you about cashew nuts and almond nuts, but also what you said about you don't know how long those nuts have been sitting in those bags or whenever on the shelf in the store. So it's better to just buy the fresh one and make them one. That's something for me to take away, honestly, because I do love nuts a lot, and I tend to try to include it daily in my meal, mostly almonds and sometimes cashew, even though I know that's fattening. I try to. But thank you. That's a lot of information. And some of the things that the supplements that you have talked about. Everyone who's here today, Dr. Kenneth has been kind. So we've got freebies from Dr. Kenneth today, 20% off stuff from her store. And the code promotion for the 20% off has been pinned up there. Also, she's got $50 off for consultation, and just her focus is around using food as medicine to shrink this fibroid. So if you're looking to do that, and I encourage us to do that, reach out to Dr. Kenneth. And another thing that I was interested in is in green teas, but after a while I actually reduced drinking green teas because I found out that they give me migraine, and I'm starting to realize now that okay, maybe I'm gonna try the decaffeinated one. I like a lot of caffeine. I drink a lot of coffee, so maybe after having my take of coffee daily and I drink the the green tea, maybe that's why I get the headaches, So I'm gonna try the caffeinated ones and see how that does. But I know you were going to try and talk about coffee now that I've said it. Dr. Lee, we can't win all of it.
I'm sorry, Tony. I've got to say this. Please, see, coffee's great because it's high in antioxidants. But the problem is the caffeine, though. The caffeine that helps with the alertness and all can actually increase levels of cortisol. Cortisol is the primary stress hormone. And if you have high levels of cortisol, by default, you're going to have estrogen dominance.
I was going to get there, honestly.
By default. And yeah, if a lady wants to shrink fibroids, she should not drink coffee. She should not drink coffee. She should not drink alcohol. Those are the two beverages she should just say bye-bye to.
From.
Seriously. Because especially if she's actively trying to conceive, she really should avoid coffee because of that cortisol. Because when you have high levels of cortisol, that stress hormone, what it does is it actually impedes the release of progesterone. So progesterone that helps to prepare the lining of the womb in the second half of the cycle for you to have a fertilized egg implanted, it impacts the levels. So it's going to be difficult to conceive, and by default, since it's pushing down the progesterone, remember the estrogen and progesterone, they have a seesaw relationship. So if progesterone is pushed down, by default, estrogen goes up. So when the person is in an estrogen dominant state, fibroids will grow. That's why I tell ladies, if you want to shrink fibroids, you should make sure you're managing stress properly. You don't want to have high levels or sustained high levels of cortisol because you're going to be in an estrogen dominant state. So manage stress, forgive, let go of grudges, go out for walks, get sunshine, just let go of it so you can really begin to heal.
Yeah. And honestly, thank you for that. That's really important. And these are some of the lessons I learned, counterproductive things that I did, because I was trying to live a healthier lifestyle. Was why I went to drinking soy milk in the first place, was because I'm also a heavy coffee drinker. And I was working in a very stressful job in the city. So I'm trying to get to work. I have a cup of coffee in my hand because that is what wakes me up. I need to, by the time I'm in the building of that that establishment, I go quickly downstairs to grab me another cup of coffee that I'm going to take to my desk, So by the time it's 2:00, I probably have had 3, by 6:00 when I'm leaving the building, I probably have had 4 or 5. And remember, I was having it with soy milk. So hence, I was bleeding nonstop because when it started, it just went haywire, and I was bleeding nonstop. And honestly, and it's really important some of the things that you've mentioned tonight. And thank you so much, because sometimes on one hand we're trying to shrink the fibroids, and then we're doing counterproductive stuff to, just minus out the things that we're trying to do well. And it's really important to stay on course. And a lady even in the hub, I think it was last year, she reached out and she was trying to conceive. She's been having miscarriages from fibroids, and some of the things that because you mentioned some things last year, and I just sent her a few of the videos from last year, that the conversation we had, and a list of food and all of that. And I think about 3 months later she came back, and then her hormonal balance has got right, and she conceived again. So they're really, really, honestly, they're things that some of these things are the things that we should take to heart, and especially if you're trying to get rid of those fibroids, and if you're trying to conceive, these are important things. Lifestyle, changing lifestyle does help, and we shouldn't settle for procedures quickly if we can try and shrink them with food and a different kind of lifestyle. I have a question, but you go on in case you have anything that you wanted to say from what I have just said.
Oh no, you're right, and thank you for sharing that. That warms my heart. So she watched the video and she implemented the things she heard, and she's pregnant now. That is such a blessing. I mean, this is a lady I never communicated with. So I just pray that this video blesses more people. I just pray more people can just hear us and begin to implement the things we're sharing, because this is real. Trust me. I went through the pain 7, 8 years ago. It's no joke. And I put my foot down. I would not let you take my womb out. And this was an OBGYN that I love and respected. In fact, he was the one that helped deliver my first two kids. So, this is not some new OBGYN. I've worked with this person before. I see him as my father, So for him telling me that, lovingly, like, Kenna, you already have 2 kids. Just take out the womb. Let's just do a hysterectomy. I know you're a clinician too, so you understand. There's no natural way to shrink this thing. I said, really? You're telling me that? Are you serious now? I said, no. And then I was how old? I was 30-something years old then, when he was telling me to take out my womb. So, it broke my heart that this person that I respected and saw as my dad, this physician was telling me to take it out. So I said, no, I'm going to research non-pharmacotherapy and non-surgical ways to shrink this fibroids, okay? Because I am determined to have a 3rd child, because I suffered a miscarriage, and I didn't even know I had fibroids until I had the miscarriage. I didn't know. I was just thinking that, and this is me as a practitioner, this is me as a clinician. I was just thinking, okay, yeah, I bleed heavily, whatever. I didn't take it seriously until I got pregnant and until I had the miscarriage, and I said, whoops, you have 3. In fact, one of them is calcified. It is so hard. It's so hard. One is calcified. It's almost like, just take out the womb, I'm like, no. So these things that I share with the ladies in my group, and the things that I implemented, and there is evidence. I'm telling you, there is research to back up everything that we are leveraging here. It is nutrition predominantly. It is predominantly nutrition. We are what we eat. We cannot escape that. No matter how you go around it, now. It comes down to what you put in your mouth, what you expose yourself to. Are you ingesting what is promoting the fibroids? Are you drinking what is making new ones to form? Are you leading a pro-inflammatory lifestyle? So all of these ties together to the dynamic of your health, the dynamic of your hormones. How well are you pooping? Are you pooping? Are you having regular bowel movements? Okay? It is not normal to have 1 bowel movement a week. It is not okay to have 2 bowel movements a week. It's not okay. Considering how long your large intestine is, considering the tube that contains the waste of your body. That tube is 5 feet long. You cannot be sitting down with all that waste in your body. You need
but having
fiber.
but having 2 to 3 daily, will that not be a bit too much, or you think that's
Okay, let's close our eyes. Let's close our eyes and imagine how long 5 feet is. 5 feet is long. That is a lot of waste sitting in you. And guess what? It's not like you are fasting. It's not like you're eating 1 day a week. Okay, let me give you a clearer picture. I'm sure you have trash cans in your house. You have small and medium-sized trash can. When the small trash can is full, do we leave it in the house and let the trash spill all over the place? No. We get rid of it, right? But what are we doing in our bodies? We are allowing the trash spill all over. And because we are not having regular bowel movement, the estrogen is being recirculated back into the bloodstream. Because there's a unique enzyme in the large intestine called the beta glucuronidase.
And now that's this from perspective when you say it like that.
Yes, and I know we have, I thought 1 hour would be sufficient, but there's so much information, and then we're really confined with the time we have together today. But let me just share this very quickly. If we are not having regular bowel movements, remember, estrogen is primarily excreted in the poop. You can release estrogen in your sweat. That's why exercise is important. However, you have a larger amount eliminated in the poop. If you are not eliminating estrogen in the poop, it is recirculating back into your bloodstream. The fibroids are getting bigger and stronger, and that extracellular matrix we talked about is becoming firmer. So you see some folks, ladies, like I told you, they touch that area like, oop, I know exactly where it's located. Oh, it's hard like a rock. Yes, because it's high in tough protein fibers.
Oh, wow. Oh, wow. Oh, wow. Now that gives a different perspective, Now I'm going to be ensuring that, I'm trying to get rid of those. But seriously, that is so much information. Thank you so much, Dr. Kene. Honestly, and we're going to do this again. We're going to do it again in March, because we need to keep talking about this food and how it affects, and it can make a lot of difference. And of course, in April, you're coming to speak with the younger women, around this food. And also it's the reason why even in FHF, this year we're looking, because sometimes also we have all of this information, all of this knowledge about eat this, don't eat that, but we then get limited in the different recipes. What can I put together? Actually, while we're here, somebody quickly said they have a problem with, they can't eat rice. What's the alternative to eating rice? Because there's so much rice to eat. And the other person said, I can eat it morning and night and all day without anything, So rice, what's the alternative to rice, And so some of the things that, I personally have found out, because some of the blockers, with all of this, so much information, knowledge that we get, okay, I should do this. And then you get to a place where you're stuck. You're like, what else can I eat? How am I going to put this food together So that's why sometimes this year, even FHF, we're having like if you like a cookery class for for healthy kind of food, to help promote feminine health lifestyle. If you have if you're living fibroid or endometriosis or those kind of things, planned recipes and menus that we will actually be hands-on learning to do this. Because for me, that became the barrier, because you go and you get all of this information and then, okay, you try 1, 2, 3 for a day. But because the creativity is little in how do I combine this food? What are the recipe? What can I put together? But if you go to a class or go to a few classes where this is being taught, you know how to cook differently, you know what to put together, then that begins to pack some kind of if you like creativity in your mind to say, oh, I've had that done, maybe I can try this, maybe I can try that, So that for me, I feel like that's the next step, to remove some of this blocker while mostly I'll speak for myself, why I'm not progressing as quickly as I should, and why some women honestly are not progressing, because when I put it out to see if people are interested in those classes, and a few people came back, and yes, for me it's the next step. While we're learning all of this, we need to also be able to put into action and actually begin to implement it, so that it becomes a lifestyle and it's not something on the pages of our notes or things that we've written down. Begin to actually live it for that wellness to happen. Thank you so much, Dr. I am absolutely grateful for your time and your knowledge. And everyone, please go to Dr. Kenneth's store. You get to get 20% off anything you buy from there. And then if you there's also the link that I've pinned up. Which one's that one? For the consultation with Dr. Kenneth, you get $50 off. I will also put that in the hub. Follow us on Instagram or any of our social media platforms, and then you get that as well. But people in the hub, we're going to post that today. My team and I are going to post that today, so you can take advantage and reach out to Dr. Kenneth and some of these things. But Dr. Kenneth, thank you so much. You will be coming back again to tell us more about food. Actually, in March is endometriosis month, so she's going to be talking to us about food as it relates to endometriosis. Thank you, everyone. Any last final thing you wanted to leave with women? I was going to ask you a question about environmental exposure, but let's leave that till next time. Thank you. Anything you wanted to leave with women as we go off?
I just wanted to state that definitely, God willing, next month I would expand more on the environmental piece of it, because that plays a massive role in our reproductive health, right? And also the food you mentioned, how that could be a stumbling block. I want to encourage ladies that you can actually make tasty, delicious foods that promote fibroid shrinkage. Don't feel that, everything is being taken away from you. No. If you eat foods in their whole forms, you get all the healing benefits of the foods. The problem is when we don't eat foods in their whole forms. Okay, by whole foods, I'm referring to foods that have not been refined, that have not been processed. You can enjoy sweet potatoes. Even when you're trying to shrink fibroids, you can enjoy sweet potatoes. You can enjoy wild rice, brown rice. The problem is if you go to white rice. The problem is when you go to white pasta, white noodles, white bread. So there, you can enjoy what we've been blessed with in nature in their whole forms. Okay, and always remember, moderation is key. At the end of the day, you can enjoy everything. However, too much of everything becomes good for nothing. So enjoy what you've been blessed with, but do it in moderation. Do it in moderation. You can do this. The platform that has been shared contains some recipe books. We have a recipe book on green smoothies that promote fibroid shrinkage. Get that book. Take advantage of it. It's relatively cheap. We have so many recipes that the women in our group have used successfully to shrink their fibroids. And we'll be adding into the store actually next month in March, a book that has recipes for meals, cooked meals that promote fibroid shrinkage. So I was so excited, Tony, when you said that you're going to be having those cooking classes. Yes, those are so important and so needed. And I will be more than happy to share some of the recipes we have in this book for the ladies to begin to use, to leverage. But you have access to everything. We've been blessed with our remedies in nature. It is here. It is here. Okay. So just want to encourage you that I feel you. I know what you're going through. If you're struggling with fibroids, if you're struggling with adenomyosis, endometriosis, I feel you because I know the pain. I have been there. And I want to encourage you that there's hope. There's light at the end of this. There's a bright light at the end of the tunnel. And there's so many women that have successfully used food literally as medicine when it comes to fibroid shrinkage. So you can do this. The goal is consistency. Be open-minded. Be willing to make lifestyle changes. It's not easy, especially when you're used to a certain way of doing things, when you're used to eating certain foods. I know it's not easy to make changes, but just think about the pain that you're going through and the fact that you don't want to go through this anymore. And it's not normal to be in pain. I've dealt with women that thought it was normal to have pain when they have their ovulation or have pain when they have their periods. No, it is not normal. No, no, no. So just hang in there, embrace food truly as medicine, and embrace a lifestyle that is free of pro-inflammatory foods. We talked about some of those in our talk earlier. Be very careful about those and live an anti-inflammatory lifestyle. So remember some of the things we shared. Choose to be happy, choose to be calm, choose to be at peace, because stress would wreak havoc not just on your mental state, but on your reproductive health.
Wow.
Stop here.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you so much. And the emphasis, honestly, as Dr. Kenny has said, is there is hope. There is hope. And I'm a firm believer that if you want it badly, honestly, there's always a way. You know, there is always. For many years, I said I can't eat brown rice. That's not even rice. But I found a way. Where there is a will, there is a way. I found a way, you know, I started putting a bit of chicken stock in it and then turmeric, and it looks nice. I'm like, okay. And then with vegetables and even stew, and now I can eat brown rice. So where there is a will, there's always a way. There is hope. There is hope. And food can be the medicine, you know, to help us treat fibroids or any other feminine health issues that we might be going through. We just need to engage and honestly work the process. Thank you everyone who's joined tonight. I hope this has helped. I hope you've taken something away that can be useful, help you to start to chat that life of living well and shrinking fibroids, if you like. Thank you very much, Dr. Kenna. I'm grateful for your time and for your knowledge. Thank you everyone who's joined tonight. God bless you, and I hope this has been very useful. See you again in 2 weeks. God bless.
God bless you. Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Everyone. God bless. Thank you, everyone who's joined. See you again soon. Hope this has been useful and helpful. Reach out to us if you need any help, if you need support, if you need signposting, or just someone to talk to. Actually, I was meant to mention this. Well, now Dr. Kenneth told me off about coffee. We're supposed to have a coffee, something called open space that we started doing, where we just come together just for mental health and also just share and hand holding, you know. So if you wanted to join me for coffee tomorrow, but apparently we shouldn't be drinking coffee. But honestly, it's at Starbucks tomorrow at 12:30. You know, if you're around Essex, Thurrock area, meet me at Starbucks and let's just hang out and have a chat and have coffee. Well, but maybe not coffee. We can have other things. We'll see what Starbucks can offer us. But God bless you. Thank you, everyone. Have a good evening. Good night.
Yo, everybody come get your bounce on, get your bounce on, get your bounce on.